All right. So, welcome everyone. Rachel Kaufman. Thank you, Rachel, for joining us. Thank you.
Happy
Thank you.
Saturday. Here we
Yes.
are.
Thanks. Please introduce yourself to the people.
Okay, so my name is Rachel Kaufman. I'm a criminal defense attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. I practice mostly in Fulton County, and I do mostly violent felonies.
Okay. And that entails murders, rapes, armed robberies, that
The
type of
fun,
thing.
yeah, the fun stuff, the bad
Yeah,
stuff.
fun stuff. Right. So,
Yeah.
you practice a lot in Fulton County. So, I'll take it you've gone up against DA Love, Fonnie Willis's office, all everybody we're seeing in this YSL trial. You've gone up against them in court.
Yes, these characters are all people that I know very, very well. Yes.
Yes, yes. And same here. I've been practicing 19 years and was a public defender in Fulton. So we know these people well. So we see them every day in court with our clients. So you had the pleasure of representing who in the YSL trial?
So I represented Taisha Alexander, who was the former, possibly current, but I believe former girlfriend of Shannon Stillwell.
Yes, yes. I like the way you said that because even she said on the stand when asked, "Are you still with Shannon?" I don't know because allegedly he possibly might be married. Did she ever have any opinion about that or know really what happened?
Okay, so I don't know how much. So there had been, and I've Caleb Bumpus and I have made peace. Like we had an issue years ago. I brought it up on YouTube. People got very upset about it. Her and I were able to discuss and move forward, and I like her very much as a person. I did not know. So I've been representing Miss Alexander ever since the state was serving subpoenas, witness subpoenas in this case. So we're talking like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Um, and so I was hired to basically help facilitate the service of her subpoena, such that when the investigators came to speak with her or give her the subpoena, that they didn't misuse the opportunity to try and get her to say things or put her in a position where she felt uncomfortable not speaking to them. So this is, again, long before anything came up with Miss Bumpus or anything like that. And then Kayla and I made peace, and then all these rumors came out about her possibly marrying Shannon Stillwell. Huge surprise to me. Not something that her and I ever spoke about. I have no idea. So I could tell you that when we were in court, when Taisha, they call her Polka, so I'll call her Polka. When Polka was testifying, and that entire day we had been there since about noon, and we didn't testify till like 5:20, 5:30. Kayla was in the court. Kayla was there the whole time. And Shannon's grandma's there, and it almost, I mean, Polka's mom was there. It just felt, it was a lot. And I was kind of in between it. And as somebody who, I don't know, I mean, I'd be kind of possessive. It was kind of reminded me of The Boy Is Mine, Monica and Brandy. It was some weird stuff that, like, I was just kind of like, I'm just glad it's not my problem. I got other problems.
Right.
But I was feeling the energy, and I just, I guess everyone loves Shannon. I don't know. I don't know the situation, but I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to bring up because it was, people don't understand how close you are in a courtroom to, like, when you're representing somebody charged with murder, the victim's family is coming in the same door. They're going to the same bathroom that you're going to. And so you're seeing people in the hall. It was a little too close for comfort, but both of them were very mature and handled themselves. I don't know if it were me, how I would have handled myself. I guess, again, it's a good thing I'm not involved.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that, because I know a lot of us, as we watched that day, we were wondering if Miss Bumpus was in the courtroom at the same time that Taisha testified. So good. Thanks for confirming that.
She was. And I do think people have been also saying, like, did the state put out that marriage license? Were they the ones that put that out there to try to piss off Polka to the point where she was going to somehow get really mad at Shannon and say things that could hurt him?
Right.
Lucky for Shannon, she wasn't really in a position to do that anyways. But I guess I tried to explain to, I told Max Shard, and he knows, a woman scorned makes a dangerous witness.
Very much so.
So it's like Shannon, my word of advice to him and any person charged with a crime who's got an ex or a current girlfriend testifying, you keep her happy, whatever you do. So,
yes.
I don't know what he was thinking or how he's handling his stuff, but
yeah,
those are just a few thoughts of mine about the whole situation. Like, you idiot.
Like, what are you thinking? Yeah, I tell clients all the time, like, it just depends on if she testifies or not, and how she testifies depends on what you do to her around the time of court. Like,
don't act up. Just
right. Don't act up.
Play nice.
So now, Miss Alexander, was she ever charged with a crime in this case?
No.
Okay.
And she was, and they had not, and the DA's office never really mentioned charging her with the crime, except for what I know about the situation is that Shannon still was a convicted felon. Mm-hmm. And my concern is that one of the weapons that was not involved in any homicide that he's charged with, just to be very clear, but a weapon that may have been thrown out of the car during the Audi during the car chase, maybe not even by Shannon, but by somebody else, came back as having been bought by Miss Alexander. Okay. So my concern was that they were going to try to say, I just don't trust them. So I was very, clear with Simone Hilton, who compared to Miss Love and some of the other members of that team. I do have more respect for her because she actually, she kept her word and she did what she was supposed to do. And she's not, her antics are not as evil as Miss Love's, not nearly. But she basically said, I told her that, my client wanted to plead the fifth. We really have nothing to add to this. Mm-hmm. And that my concern is that if you're gonna ask her about these guns, I don't need you trying to say that she provided a gun to a convicted felon and then arresting her.
Right, because that it could be a charge, correct?
Yeah, they could, and they easily could, and I don't trust them not to. Right. So she went through the same procedure that she went to get Kenneth Copeland or Woody his immunity, but without the ex parte meeting. We didn't do any of that. Right. And again, I mean, she hadn't been singing to police for hours and hours and hours before this, so it was a lot more limited in what she was going to be able to even provide to the state. But yeah, I mean, this gun that came out of the car happened to have belonged to her.
Now, I'm sorry. Has she ever given that statement to the police or anything prior to testifying?
So there was a time where we met with the investigators when they were serving her subpoena, where they kind of mentioned that, because she's like, what do you want from me? Because part of the issue is that she had been coming to court since the beginning, mm-hmm. bringing Shannon his clothes, mm-hmm. wanting to be in the courtroom. And because she was on the witness list, they wouldn't allow her to sit in the courtroom, invoking the rule of sequestration, mm-hmm. meaning that if you are a potential witness in the case, you're not allowed to watch the case or sit in court until you've testified. So they basically used that as a way to keep her out of the courtroom the whole time. She wanted to be in the courtroom. They weren't married, so I couldn't claim marital privilege and invoke that. I don't even know where I was going with that, but basically she's been sitting outside the courtroom because what do they want her to testify about? This gun. What's kind of wild about the whole gun situation, though, again, is that it had nothing to do with this homicide, the drinks homicide. Her testimony came on the end of that. It was almost like a bait and switch situation. They were trying. I don't think the jurors are that dumb.
Yeah,
I believe the gun that was used in the drinks murder was like a 40. This was like an FN 9mm. Mm-hmm. So I think that they can figure out that wasn't the same gun. Yeah. I think the jurors actually really liked her. I think she was refreshing.
I think she was too. And I'm glad you brought that up because it was so confusing this week, wasn't it? Like they kept going back and forth. So they talk about the drinks murder, then they'll talk about all these shell casings they found. And you're thinking is going with the drinks murder. Then they talk about a gun that was found on the side of the road. And the whole time you're thinking drinks murder until you get to cross. And not until you get to cross, then you realize this doesn't have to do with any of the crimes they're charged with. It's about some shit found on the side of the road.
That's about how they like to try their cases, isn't it? Like, I mean, I guess if they throw a bunch of stuff at the jury and hope that they get confused.
Yeah.
But I don't think the jury is buying it. We also know that there's one juror who's definitely not buying it.
Definitely, number 56 is not
I
with
was there. I was there the day that the office. I forget who it was. The investigator or the officer gets on the stand with that like lunchbox filled with really fancy jewelry that had not been itemized.
Yeah.
It was shocking to me because that a lot of those pieces of jewelry are worth more than like several cars, each of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Mm-hmm.
like taking like chunks of jewelry out of this, like they didn't preserve them individually.
Isn't
And then
it
we have a
something?
watch that's missing. But I was there for that, and it was after that that the juror wrote, I think, to the judge to be like, I'm not down with any of this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that was just, we know that like when you go through someone's car in a
Mm-hmm.
DUI, in anything,
Mm-hmm.
everything gets itemized.
Everything.
I
It's
mean,
an
an
installation.
empty bag of chips,
Yes.
and they're not itemizing the different the individual jewelry that they seized from Young Thug's house.
That's crazy because you need to itemize that for the seizure. You can't
Millions
just
of dollars. It's millions of dollars. But Adrian wanted to just jump past the seizure forfeiture. She was
yeah
going to try, and
and
I was
make it
shocked.
part of his plea. I was shocked that she said that because
You
forfeitures
thief.
are a totally separate civil hearing, not something you loop into the
That's
plea deal.
attempted felony theft. If I know
That
anything, I was
that is
like, babe,
crazy.
no.
That is crazy. Now, your client did she want to testify? I know you said that she intended to plead the
No.
fifth. Was she forced? Tell me how the state
Oh, she was
forced her to.
forced. Yeah. So So no, she did not want to testify.
Mhm.
She obviously has had some feelings lately since their
Mhm.
relationship is not the same that it used to be.
Right.
Let's just say they were together. She didn't want to testify. They're not together. She doesn't really want to testify either. When we pled the fifth and they gave us immunity, the whole deal is you have to testify or else you're going to be held in contempt. What does that mean? They're going to send you to the Fulton County Jail. What does that mean? Well, you'd be welcome based on the new Department of Justice investigation that we just saw come out this past week. Anybody who wants to look at it, you should definitely search in Google Department of Justice Fulton County investigation. You'll see that people who are inmates in the Fulton County Jail, that their constitutional rights are being violated pervasively. They're not getting proper medical care. They're not in sanitary housing. They're not being fed properly. It is about as horrifying as it could possibly get. So this isn't even like, testify or go to like a city jail where you'll be okay for a few days. This is
Mhm.
like risk your life.
Yep.
Um, Based on the fact that we got immunity and the fact that, I mean, what we knew that we were going to be testifying about wasn't
Mhm.
particularly concerning to
Yeah.
Shannon. I mean, can't hurt Shannon that much. It's not even about any of the cases that he's really charged with. I guess it's possession of a firearm by a convicted felon by proxy, possibly. That's like honestly the least of his concerns.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so we were like, we'll just, no, she's not going to jail, and
Mhm.
sure, we'll testify, because honestly, it was better than contempt, because she didn't. So there's situations where some people I think should maybe hold it down and say,
Yeah.
I'll just. I mean, depending on who they are and what they've said and what they could say and
Mhm.
how it could affect. Sometimes being quiet is
Yeah.
the right thing to do. Here, based on what I knew her truth was,
Yeah.
I realized that not that it's a mistake for the state to call her, but she's not helping them in
Right.
any real way. So let's get on the stand and you can tell everyone, you're the baddest bitch in the land or whatever. That's what we wanted to say. But she said she's the prettiest.
Prettiest girl friend that Shannon's ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I was like, do your thing, like whatever.
Definitely.
Have some fun with it. I love when they're like, "Did you go through his phone?" She's like, "Yeah, I went through his phone."
Right. He wasn't there, of course. Like, and then
Every woman knows.
did you want to go through the phone when he got locked up? Like, what
Hell
is
yeah.
that relevance? But hell yeah, like she did say, hell yeah, every woman wants to do that, right?
And there was even there was an old white lady on it. So this is the first time I got to see the jury, but because she was testifying, I got to sit somewhere different than I'm usually allowed to sit when I go in there. And so I got to see some of the jurors kind of from my angle. And there's this kind of like older white lady. She was eating up Polka's testimony, laughing. I mean, so I was like, okay, even she gets this old. She understands.
Mm-hmm.
Go through his phone. Let the world know that you're the prettiest girl he's had. I mean, I thought she was very endearing. And then she's like, yeah, they didn't rob me. They attempted to rob me and I shot her.
Yes, she was clear on that when she wanted them to understand. They attempted, and I shot her, like, very clear. Now, was that is that case resolved or is it still pending?
So my understanding about that case is that the individuals who were there to rob her have been prosecuted.
Okay.
And that she is a victim in that case and she was not charged. So I was not worried about her talking about that.
Of course, of course.
But yeah, I just thought that, I mean, I didn't think that it was going to come up, but I was kind of, when you have nothing to hide, it's like, I'm an open book. So go ahead. I'll tell you the truth. And that was the truth.
And I feel like Max really brought it up on his cross. Now, did that bother her having to relive that incident? Was it emotional for her, or she passed?
Did it look like?
I mean, it didn't appear to understand, but like once you get off the stand, the adrenaline's gone. You kind of like, I mean.
So what's interesting? So we were sitting there all day. She was very nervous about having to get on the stand, worried that she wouldn't even be able to spell her name, like, knowing that the cameras are on her. She was very nervous, and to that extent didn't want to testify. I reminded her, you're a performer, babe.
Yeah.
You got this.
Yeah.
You got this. And she did. And she got up there. I think once she was up there, she's a ham. I mean, she handled herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was completely fine, as I expected. And then, when she got off the stand, I think she was just relieved that it was over and it wasn't. I told her, I'm like this too, where I anticipate things and I anticipate them being a lot worse, like going to the dentist.
Yeah.
I hate the anticipation of having to go to the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
It's never as bad as I expect it's going to be.
That's
so
true.
That's kind of how it was for her. So yeah, reliving that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's hard to even to imagine being robbed, but I think the way that whole thing resolved and the fact that she's been kind of safe and out of the line of fire since is good. And she's proud that she could protect herself.
Yes.
And yeah, she seemed pretty, she's just she's more confident than she gives herself credit for. I knew that. I'm like, when we weren't going to even discuss her being a dancer, but when Max is like, you work in a cash business, she's like, yeah, I'm a dancer. I'm like, exactly, babe. You know who you are. You know what you do. You're good. So
now,
yeah.
The way the state forced her to testify and the way it appears they forced Obama to testify, like, is that a common practice? And how does that make you feel?
Love it. Look. Yeah, I love these are such great questions. I mean, these are softball pitches. I'm like, let's obviously I practice mostly in Fulton, so I'm used to this level of dysfunction. I'm used to them putting other prosecutors on the stand, pretending that they're experts and, trying to feed it to the jury as like truth and expert testimony. I'm used to them not really discerning who is a criminal and who is not a criminal. That was my big thing with this case, with Kenneth Copeland, with Woody, with Obama. Like giving them deals, but then scripting, not based on their own words, but based on what you'd want them to say, letting them out when they're charged with basically the same kinds of stuff. So they're safe, and who cares about them? Who cares about the safety of the community? Because apparently they're fine. But these other guys who are charged with the same thing or being parties to crimes that are similar, we're going to put words in their mouth that they didn't say and say, we'll let you out. If you say this, people don't understand what Fulton County Jail is like.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't understand. It is survival over everything. And most people would cut off their hands, arms, anything to get out of there. So the fact that they signed a piece of paper and it has a bunch of words that their lawyers kind of like, just say yes. This is, we'll deal with it later. Derek Wright got a bunch of crap for that with Yeah. I mean, as a lawyer, I'm like, at the time he was a hero. He got his client out of all of this. But, the state just misused. And how truthful can it be if it's the words of the prosecutor and not the words of the actual person that's going to be testifying?
And when they're trying to tell the truth on the stand, and you're saying, no, don't say the truth. Go back and say what you swore to tell that I created back when you took the plea.
Yeah. What is justice?
So unfair.
It's like, it's like literally like the most superficial construction of facts of a case. We were talking before we got on here. prosecutors should not have an imagination. They should not be using their imagination to prosecute a case. So like if those are their words,
Mm-hmm.
they should be verified with actual facts
Yep.
and then brought in.
Yeah.
Adrienne Love shouldn't be in her office typing up some, factual facts. You weren't there.
Right. It's
Who
like
are
they
you?
create the factual allegations to fit their theory of the case to then present to the jury as
Forcing
if evidence, but you're forcing someone to say something that's not true.
people kidnap until they agree to do it.
Yep.
It's disgusting. And so what we were also talking about before this is back to the DOJ investigation into Fulton County. The DA's office is responsible, in my opinion, at least partially, for all of the constitutional violations to the inmates therein, because they are responsible for fighting against reasonable bonds for these individuals, many of which end up getting out on probation later on. But you've got people whose lives are being put at risk every day so that they can try to negotiate deals to create these factual patterns that don't even really exist while the person is literally being kidnapped and having their life at risk. Everybody, most people, unless you're like a real G, you would have to be willing. I mean, I don't know who you might think you would be, but I don't. If you've never been in this situation, I don't think that you have any right to criticize these guys. You can criticize Woody for testifying or for going to the police precinct voluntarily and doing his singing. Okay, but you're telling me that I signed some document to get out of jail, like kiss my ass. Yes, I'm leaving jail. Whatever it said, I do not care.
Right. I want to get out of here. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, everybody in their reasonable mind would do the exact same thing. And so then the fact that Paige Whitaker took out all of her anger on Moontunk seemed just so unfair. Unfair.
It did. I'm almost hoping that at the end of things, she goes back and revisits that when she sees like how many games the state has been playing. I mean, they have been force and manipulation. This is what they do, not evidence. They are making this case off of force and manipulation, period.
And she knows that. And I mean, that's what, so when she gave Young Thug the time served plea, I mean, at that point, and previous, I mean, I've been watching this case since the beginning, she said things like, the state needs to take their duty of candor to the court more seriously. They need to take this more seriously. Okay. They should be held to a higher standard than a criminal defendant who's sitting in Fulton County jail just trying to survive, who wants to go home.
And why can't they be held responsible when people, like, because I know you do civil rights law and you file these lawsuits, why can't the prosecutors be held responsible as well?
It basically has to be like malicious prosecution. And that the standard for that, I mean, you have to basically be able to like completely prove your innocence. The state, and this is why they continue to do what they do, is because there are no consequences when a prosecutor gets it wrong, when a prosecutor lies, when they tell you what their case is going to be about. I had a case once in Fulton County. I'll never forget this. I remember we were like at a bond hearing and they said my client was pulled over in a car. He had a gun in the car. There was a body in the trunk. Okay. He wasn't charged with murder. There was no body in the trunk. I was like, did they watch Law and Order SVU last night? And are they like confusing? There was no body in any trunk or anything. And then like, they just kind of moved on with their day. And then I get the police report because I'm looking at my client. Like, did you forget to tell me something?
Right.
Because I'm wondering I'm wondering what the fuck? Like, I don't understand. And ultimately, there was no body in the trunk, but there's no way to go back and be like, you swore to uphold your duty of candor to the tribunal. There's rules of professionalism that you guys just violate like it's nothing. They're not scared of lying at all. But they didn't want him to get bond, and so they just I don't know. I don't know what goes through their heads that they think they're so deranged. That they think that they can just manipulate truth for their own benefit.
And at the bond hearing stage, you don't have discovery yet, so you're left with just everything they say out their mouth. You can't combat it because you don't have the police report yet. You don't have the body cam. You don't have the evidence, so you're left with having to believe what they're saying, and then to later learn that it's all a lie. It's so
Body in a trunk,
frustrating.
dude, come on. And I mean, just to think of the fact that somebody could possibly die because of their lies at a bond hearing.
Yeah, because people are
Nope.
dying in the Fulton County Jail,
Yeah.
waiting on their trials, waiting on their
Yes.
cases to be resolved. So
I've had several clients die in that jail, and I don't have that big of a practice. Like, I'm not some like, I work for myself. I'm one person. I try a few cases a year, and I've had several people die. Several others be stabbed in that jail.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
no,
gonna
I still go back there.
yeah, we're gonna do a live on the DOJ thing, so I'm gonna have to bring you back so you can kind of tell us some more about that. But
I
thank
will
you.
say I did snitch really quick. I did snitch on that, which I'm happy.
Good.
Hey, Fulton County. Hey, Fulton County, guess what? I have a big mouth. And when the DOJ was looking for attorneys who had information about things that are going on in that jail, I was like, please give me a call. Because somebody has to prosecute the prosecutors. Somebody has to let people know. I don't know if you've had this experience there, but like, there's many times I'll go to visit my client. They say the elevators are broken. So you go there and you cannot, let's just say, I mean, I have clients that are at risk that I want to put my eyes on them to make sure that they're doing okay. And they tell me there's no stairs. You can't go. So you can't take the stairs. And if the elevator's not working, you're actually preventing me from having access to my client, which is, other than housing them and keeping them safe pre-trial, the other thing that you need to facilitate are visits between attorneys and their clients.
Yes.
And you're actually preventing me and prohibiting me from doing that. That's something that I've gone bonkers about.
It's ridiculous.
Because how many times do I have to go there and them tell me no, to over time you just stop wanting to go?
Yeah.
But then your clients are the ones that suffer.
Right, because they can't get bond, or they can't make the high ass bond that they gave them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, that's for another day. But yeah, I'm glad you invited me on to talk about this stuff, because I'm just oof.
I know. I love your personality. I love your attitude about this. You're diehard attorney at heart, and you fight against these injustices every day. And I just want people to really see behind the scenes, like how they manipulate things, because from the outside looking in, they think if you're charged with something, if you go to court and plead guilty, that you did everything they said. And it's a lot of things that happen in between to get you to the end result that don't have anything to do with your guilt.
Yeah, I'll leave on this note that it's more important. I tell clients it's more important to be free than it is to be right in a system that too often gets it wrong.
Yes.
I'm not willing. I don't trust the system. I mean, I would love if the system would apologize to you for locking you up for things that you didn't do. But guess what? I'd much rather you be free and say, like, you know, I can be on non-reporting probation for a few years. Don't drug test me. But like, if you're in Fulton, you're usually okay with that.
Right.
You're telling me to do that in Cobb, but like in Fulton, you're okay. Or like move to California and have it transferred there. It is so much better to be free than to try to fight to be right in this system that really rewards prosecutors for getting it wrong. And jurors are just, it's a dangerous game. So so that's why people take pleas.
Yes.
It's not that important to have the system tell you that you're right.
Yeah. Who cares? Who cares? If you can get a guaranteed result that gets you home, who cares? Because we see trials are not fair. This YSL trial has shown us that they're not fair.
Yeah, and usually they're a lot quicker. So the patterns of the states, their unethical behavior isn't so obvious to a jury in a 4-day trial as it is in a 2-year trial. I've seen them, and it ruins lives. There's people who I'm sure you too, I regret not pushing harder at the beginning of my career for pleas for certain people, because I wanted to tee it up and fight. And their families wanted the same thing. But the older I get, the more experienced I get, the more I realize sometimes it's better to fold and get the hell out of this broken system as quickly as possible.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. Well, thank you so much for coming. Everyone was loving you. We would definitely be you back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Have a good night. I'm going to go to sleep now and eat some food for baby Clyde.
Okay. I know. Congratulations. I'll see you.